It's a pleasure for us to meet you, sir. Hope everyone
Thank
is
you for
safe
having
from
me.
this.
As for me and my family members, we're sort of hunkered down in our home right now. We've all been communicating with the world through Zoom and Skype and everything, but so far we're doing well.
Okay, no, that's good to hear.
Okay. So I'm actually I finished up my undergraduate as well. I'm software engineering at IIT. And then right from the get-go, we started this company called CityCollection. And CityCollection is quite an early stage startup. We're working with a team from Singapore and as well as Sri Lanka to actually get this thing going. So at the moment, we are facing the difficulties of this whole COVID pandemic situation. We can't go outside, we can't talk to one another, but we've all been utilizing tools such as Zoom and everything to sort of keep our head afloat, to keep ourselves steady and keep ourselves going, essentially. So I would say that's pretty much it. All right, so now that definitely defines what you mean by success, right? So everyone has different success stages throughout their career, right?
Yeah.
Now, we're still quite an early stage startup, so we have yet several goals to meet. But I guess one thing that would set us apart is becoming semi-finalists in this competition as a company, as CityCollection as a company, in this competition called the Plastics Data Challenge, which is all about bringing data and preventing plastics from going into the ocean, and sort of merging the two. And we're actually semi-finalists, and we're currently in that competition. So that's sort of the highest achievement that we've achieved so far. So I guess that's something that I guess lingers in the back of my mind.
I'm going to be something like
I wouldn't say that there was one person.
All right.
There's definitely a multitude of people in Sri Lanka and in other countries as well. But I wouldn't say that it was just one person. No.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So, like I said again, we're still quite early in terms of beginning our journeys. But we did face quite a lot of challenges, especially in terms of time management, especially in terms of political stuff that comes with with startups in general in Sri Lanka. And on top of that, this whole COVID-19 pandemic thing. But I think the challenges themselves aren't really what we should focus on. It should be how we actually overcome them. So in order to overcome these challenges, you sort of need to persist. Once something happens, you can't just stop doing that. You can't just stop pursuing your goal. You need to overcome it. You need to continue on. You need to try different methods. I believe there was a saying: you keep doing the same thing, expecting the same outcome. That's the definition of insane, right? And unfortunately, that's the thing a lot of people do when it comes to startups, when it comes to building their career. Even they do the same things, expecting different outcomes, and that's the definition of insane. So I would say that's the thing. So try different things. Try your best to continue on where you need to go, and that's sort of how you should overcome challenges. As far as sacrifices go, I mean, I'm not going to point out any specific sacrifices, but there are definitely a lot of sacrifices that you do need to make, whether it's in terms of relationships, whether it's in terms of improper time management. And those are things that you'll learn from, right? So those are things that generally people who are trying to achieve success, and I'm not saying that I've achieved success just yet. I've still got a way to go. But those are generally the things that people, students even, will face, and those are some of the sacrifices that would be considered as challenges that you need to overcome, essentially. How do I manage? Okay, so at the moment, we are still an early stage startup, so we haven't defined any specific working hours right now. But at the moment, me myself, I'm working full time at my company. As far as balancing my personal life and balancing work in the company, it really depends on the type of tasks that's going at that moment, right? Whether there's any high priority tasks, whether it's not as high priority. And you sort of just need to balance the two back and forth, right? You should always have time for your family and friends. You should always have time for your personal life. But at the same time, you shouldn't just discard your work at a company, whether you're the CEO or whether you're just a junior position or anything, right? So you sort of need to balance the position. You need to balance the two. So you need to think what's high priority, what's not high priority, and sort of go back and forth essentially.
Right. So that's something really helpful for our viewers, I guess, and also for us, as we are still youngsters, so starting up with this SkyMedia company. So, sir.
We're working on a service. We're working on a service, and our company CityCollection is all about incentivizing the whole recycling process. So one thing that we've identified is that recycling and proper waste management in Sri Lanka as a whole isn't adequate, right? So typically in areas like urban areas such as Colombo, it works relatively well with municipal councils and all their garbage pickups and everything. But when you go to the outskirts, it's not as good. It's not as robust as it is in Colombo. And also on top of that, one thing that we've learned is that there's a lack of knowledge when it comes to proper waste management in Sri Lanka. So with that lack of knowledge, what we're trying to do is we're essentially trying to fill that gap. We're incentivizing the whole process of proper waste management and getting people to recycle. And from, of course, people recycling, there'll be reduced litter on the streets, reduced plastics going into the ocean, which is one of the main things that we are tackling right now. And yeah, essentially incentivizing and gamifying the whole process of proper waste management, essentially, to get people to recycle more. And from that, we're also utilizing mass amounts of data that's gathered from our system. So also on top of that, identify hotspots, say that have a population of people that are littering, or say we are also working on a small task right now, which is identifying canals in Colombo that have high rates of recycling or not recycling, littering. So like the Bellata canals and all that, there's a lot of litter in those canals. So we're identifying these places. We're essentially marketing towards those areas to get those people to, instead of throwing their garbage into these canals and that garbage ending up in the ocean, we're trying to get that garbage from them, and we're trying to teach them how to recycle. And we're doing that by incentivizing and gamifying the whole process of recycling, of proper waste management. So that's what our company is, essentially, in a nutshell. At the moment, no. We of course started from home, but at the moment we're sort of restricted to our homes.
All right.
At the moment, it's me, our head of marketing, and 2 other co-founders, so 4 people in total. 4 people in total, and we're sort of just working through Zoom and Skype and Slack chat and everything. It's been working relatively well. We do miss meeting each other. We aren't able to go into meetings or anything like that, but it's been all right. Because we are an early stage startup, we are a seed stage startup actually, we aren't really affected too much by the COVID pandemic situation when it comes to keeping employees or running offices or anything. Yeah. So right. At the moment, it's freedom. At the moment, we are giving freedom to all the employees of the company. We don't have a specified number of hours, and that's primarily because we are still a stage startup, right? So moving forward, once we do establish ourselves even further, we are of course going to have to enforce working hours, like specific things such as that, and yeah. But at the moment, we do give the freedom to our employees, essentially.
These people.
So at the moment, it'll be a mobile application. I'll say the process. I guess that's the simplest thing to understand. Essentially, anyone and everyone will have a mobile application, and with the mobile application, they can schedule these things called pickups, and these are garbage pickups. So they can essentially collect all of their recyclable items. Say throughout a week, you collect 5 plastic bottles, plus 5 Milo packets or something, and you would essentially create a pickup, and then you would add on the app 5 plastic bottles and 5 Milo packets or 5 milk packets as your pickup. And then once you schedule the pickup, then someone will actually come to your house, pick up the garbage, and then they'll take it. And once they take it, they need to do this process called validation, which is where they actually check to see if the amount that you entered is correct. So you've entered 5 water bottles and 5 milk packets. They'll check to see if that amount is correct. And once they validated it, you will receive these points, and you can essentially use those points on our mobile application to redeem for cash, to redeem for mobile reloads, for discounts and coupons at stores, etc.
So
that's sort of the process in simple.
Well, like Avinath mentioned, right now we don't actually have put the product out there. Our application is not there in the market. It's not available yet. But we have identified several strategies that we can do. And most importantly, we've identified what sort of people we need to reach in several stages. Like we've identified what sort of people we need to reach first, and then how to branch out from there. It's like a onion model, if you will. Like you, in layers and layers, you can outwardly capture these people's attention. So we have a couple of strategies, and of course we need funding for them as well. But the thing is that we can always use extra help. We can always get an outside expert's opinion. So we are.
Okay, so what I wanted to ask is, as you mentioned, like as the product is in its early stages of developing, so you are working on the plan with the marketing strategies.
It is definitely easy to use, and on top of that, the mobile application is not just in English, so it'll also be available in Sinhalese and Tamil, so anyone can essentially. And on top of that, we're also working for the same system, so essentially all of the features on the mobile application will be available for people without a smartphone. So utilizing SMS, you know how you can dial the dialogue hash codes and you can get things done on to those features. So essentially implementing the entire mobile application, all the features on the mobile application, into that as well. So essentially anyone can use it.
Okay, so the thing that you mentioned right now with these hashtags and all the stuff, that's really useful because I have seen personally in my life that, let's say, the people who's around 50 plus in age, they are having a really hard time on using mobile applications. Like there are a few who are fine with the smartphones and stuff, and the hashtags are a really good idea. So that's really great. So
here's the thing. So as far as the application goes, the mobile application, it's not going to be deployed on any sort of Azure or anything. We're just releasing it on Google and Google Play Store and App Store. But as far as our actual infrastructure goes, in terms of our databases, hosting our APIs and everything, that'll definitely be on AWS. We've identified that as the most viable, scalable, and cheap solution. So they have relative services such as DynamoDB for databases or Aurora. We're still designing our system out in terms of the backend, but more than likely we will be going towards AWS in terms of hosting our backend services.
The way we scale it up is, Avinath will probably explain a little bit more, is we first going with the cheap one, which is Firebase, and then as we see the amount of users, hopefully if they're beginning to come in, we will go into the AWS because of the higher functionality and the range, but then we will start incurring the costs. If Avinath occasionally needs to add in anything to that, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much it. At the moment, we're sort of developing our pilot on Firebase and then moving towards AWS.
Okay, so that's a pretty good idea because as Sri Lankans, at least the people who have never heard about Firebase and these cloud platforms, once, even after they hear these words, the youngsters will start searching for them and start to educate themselves, because I've seen these cloud platforms are basically free of charge to get educated, and only for the certificate we should pay. So
Certainly.
that's why I was asking it.
Sometimes you don't even need the certificate. There's enough tutorials online to help you make projects and applications that are sometimes even worth more than the certificate itself.
Yes, so that's basically great. And
So I love this concept. So actually, I love when this is out. I will also use it. So so with so you all phrase it.
So again, like I mentioned, that we are still a seed stage company, so it's not affecting us too much. It has definitely slowed our progression down in terms of scheduling meetings with other clients. But as far as we're going, we've been sort of battling forward, just using Zoom and Hangouts and Slack and all the solutions like that to sort of continue developing our platform, to continue networking with others. And yeah, that's sort of where we've been at, actually.
There, Anjana Pawani, it's right. The advantageous side of this is, while everyone else was stuck, Avinath, me, Keshni, and Ajmal were, first of all, they were getting through their main coursework, and we can start building the app. Now, building the app doesn't require us to be physically on the premises, so we can do it over here and we can share the code, all of that. So that was good. That's the advantageous side of it. And also the fact that when COVID-19 came, it's forcing emerging markets to increase their usage of mobile devices, which is
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, so I mean, that's good for all of the e-commerce platform, for mobile services, internet banking, and industries in that area. It's beneficial. Whereas it's counterproductive to primarily industries that require you to be on premise, stuff like manufacturing, garments, etc. So we are positioned well in that sense. But the negative side is, to be really honest, striking partnership deals is very difficult because in the end our platform is consumer oriented, right? And that is one of the areas that has been hit primarily. So that's what we are trying to navigate in terms of how will it look like, say 6 months down the line and one year down the line. Will our partnerships with the main company that we are doing this be healthy enough to help us take part in this particular aspect? Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that, Keshni?
Yes, like Kamika mentioned, lots of people are now orienting towards digital solutions. So that's something that we noticed, that's some advantage that we saw from this whole COVID-19 business. Especially in Sri Lanka, like people didn't used to refer to the internet or use phones or use online features or anything. But now they're using online banking, they are using online shopping to get deliveries, they're using online payment methods, everything. So people are like, especially in Sri Lanka, people are moving towards like online and mobile marketing. Everything is like more mobile oriented. So that's a really good advantage. People are using it. They're not afraid of technology. Lots of people are not afraid of technology anymore because of this situation. So I think we can take advantage of that.
Garbage items, that's going to come out of the other masks, right? That's cloth and plastic sieving, and there's a lot of it. There's a lot of that's going to, and that's one. And two is biomedical waste. So that's a little bit more. We have to be a little bit more careful. I don't think we can go to that stage yet because there's a lot of regulation when handling that kind of stuff. You can't just throw it away, right? It's biomedical waste. So other than that, for the rest of the items, yeah, obviously it makes a huge use case as well. It's heterogeneous. You can add as much as you want.
So yeah, exactly. So it's like it's not just plastics and everything. There can be any sort of garbage that you can add. Say, for example, if you have old TVs or laptops, those things called e-waste. So you can add e-waste items. You can add essentially anything that a waste management collection facility can actually already process. So yeah. we're scalable in terms of those.
Yeah, right. Sure. So the next, like I said, the next big challenge, Pawani, is going to be striking the deal with the company. So we are a technology provider, right? We don't own or lease the assets or the trucks or anything. For that to happen, we have to first of all strike the partnership. Now the issue is not that there will be a lack of demand or anything. Arguably for the next I would say 4 to 5 to 6 months, right? They will be more concentrated on supporting their businesses as of now and saving themselves rather than striking new deals. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the main barrier. It's not that we won't get it, we will, but it's going to get a little bit delayed. It's a function of how well they can come back to the normal state, if that will be the case. Even going forward, I mean, if they can get the main operations ready, then they will be able to look. I mean, if you're not going to be looking at buying a car, right? You have to first get the foundation and everything ready before you look at the discretionary stuff. So that is the main challenge, I would say, in terms of the rest, because the developing the tech platform and you can do that as we are. It's perfectly fine. It's that. I mean, that's going to be the main hindrance we see. Anything you want to add, Keshni, Avinath, on that?
Yeah, I'd say it won't be a major challenge, but I think it's like somewhat challenging task for us would be, yes, exactly, educating the user base and getting them on board and retaining them especially. It doesn't matter if they actually download the app as long as they don't use it. So we don't only need people to just come on board, we need them to stay on board.
So that's why,
going to be a difficult one.
So that's why we're sort of, that we've identified that as like one of our main problems that we're going to face. And that's why we're trying to incentivize the platform essentially. So to gamify the platform, to get people on board and keep them on board and have them using our application as much as they can, essentially. So at the moment, like Gamika said, so we're working on partnerships and everything, but at the present, we're still developing the platform, and we have been talking to several of these waste collection companies. But going forward, we're planning to launch a pilot very, very soon. Once this whole COVID thing blows over and we actually do manage to strike a deal with at least one of these companies. Then we can launch a pilot, and then we can essentially grow from there. We have several other streams several other paths that we have identified, such as, for example, there's this thing called City Bin. So it's like CityCollection, except like our collection scheme is essentially an at-home based scheme. So on the app, you can schedule a pickup, right? So these bins are essentially another solution for that. Except these bins are remote, so these bins will be in like malls, or at a beach or at a park or something. And essentially, you can go to the bins, put your items in, and you can get the points on your app, and you don't need to schedule the pickups in. So when you're out and about, you can just throw your items into the bin. So we have several use cases like that. We have identified several pathways like that, and we are going to pursue those pathways. We are going to pursue those pathways as well. But at the present, it's developing the platform and striking deals with a bunch of these waste collection companies. And then we're launching a pilot, and then depending on the success of our pilot, we're sort of going forward.
The software development side, yeah. So okay, so in terms of, if you're okay, I'll split it into two different sides. One would be if you're going into employment, or one would be if you're going to startups. All right. So I mean, Avinath obviously do a better job in explaining the kind of nuances, but I'll give you the basic idea. When you're starting a business, the first and most important thing is you have to understand if your application has a pain point. Okay. The first thing you need to understand is if I mean, maybe you come up with a great idea, that's fine. But does anybody want it? Has it been done before? If it's been done before, did it work? If it didn't work, why didn't it work? Okay, so the main point is you have to understand if there is a real pain point for the society. Is there a real pain point for social communication? Is there a real pain point for renewable energy? Is there a real pain point for garbage disposal? These are all yes. The answer to all of them are yes. Is there a real pain point for banking inclusion, the monetary inclusion in Sri Lanka? Most of the wealth is concentrated in about 5 to 10% of the top end of the population. What about the rest of them? How can we get them to do mobile banking and the internet services? And so these are all questions that you have to think. I mean, there are a lot of many pain points that people haven't yet understood that exist. Okay, so that's one side of it. Then in terms of the employment, so you have to be able to quickly understand the kind of trends and the movements towards different types of platforms. So you will have platforms that will come and go, and platforms that will always be there, like C++, Java, and Python, and you need to adapt to be able to use platforms like that. Actually, Avinath, why don't you give a bit more in depth into, for example, Flutter and why you start learning?
So that's one thing that I actually wanted to get into. So regardless of whether you're doing a startup, building a company, or whether you're trying to find a good job, as far as the software engineering goes, that's one thing that I do notice in a lot of university students. The thing is that universities lay down a solid foundation. They are able to teach you as much as they can when it comes to the whole software engineering domain. And they can lay down a solid foundation. But the thing is that you yourself need to be responsible to build on top of that foundation. So a lot of these kids, essentially, they learn what they can from university, and then that's it. That's what they're going to take to the job market. That's what they're going to take to the interview. But in reality, a lot of the things that are actually taught in university aren't enough, or it can even be outdated as well. That's just sort of a general thing with a lot of university programs. So that's definitely one thing. So starting from that foundation, you need to build on top of it. Whether it's learning new skills, learning new technologies, you need to do that by yourself, because throughout your career as a software engineer, computer science student, you need to learn those. You need to learn those things by yourself. No one's gonna teach it to you. Right? So you definitely need to take on that responsibility of self-learning. And there's a lot of resources online that you can utilize for learning. YouTube, Udemy, you can do. There's a lot of stuff, right? So that's definitely a responsibility that you need to take, whether it's learning the latest technologies such as Flutter, which is something that I'm personally working with, or whether it's learning like a new design pattern or something that's relevant to the current market, the current software engineering industry. That's something that you need to take on as your own responsibility. And you can't expect universities to essentially spoon feed you everything and take you to take to the industry. So I'd say that's definitely one of my biggest things that students should do.
So, Sir Avinath, the words you spoke in the last few minutes was super great, because as Sri Lankans,
Now, I actually grew up in Canada, so I didn't grow up in Sri Lanka. I grew up in Canada, so I went to school there. I went to high school there. But one thing though, it's not just a Sri Lankan problem. That's something that I would like to say, where students expect themselves to be spoon-fed by teachers and lecturers and everyone. That's something that's also true in Canada as well. So that's something that's sort of global, where students they go to school, and then even as kids you're spoon-fed everything, right? You're not expected to learn by yourself. But once you start going towards your higher studies, you definitely cannot expect that. But that's definitely something that I guess as a culture as a whole, whether it be in Sri Lanka or Canada or anywhere, that's something that they should definitely encourage students to do, to start exploring stuff, to start learning stuff Because yeah, I get marks matter, and I mean marks are like you need to get good grades, but at the same time, those aren't the only things that you need to achieve. You also need to set certain goals for yourself that are non-academic, that can help you progress into a career into the career that you want to get into, right? So that's definitely something that I think should happen in universities, whether it be anywhere in the world, not in schools, anywhere in the world, not just Sri Lanka. They should definitely encourage students to do that.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, Anjana, because I have two things. I work for an employer and I do this CityCollection, yeah, and I do the interviews, all right, hiring for positions for new employees, and the CV, the marks you have, I spend 5 seconds just looking at it and decide, okay, she is just good enough. So long as you haven't failed or done anything like that, I don't discount you for having slightly lower marks than not maybe all A's. I look at the kind of experience. Okay, I look at the experiences and how it has written, how well they have written, what are the experiences, what have they done in these experiences. Engaging on that, I get them to an interview, and then only on that interview do we decide who to go. Very, very rarely do we ever. I think I have never done a place where I have just accepted the candidate because she has 3 A stars or A's or whatever, 4 or 5. That's never been the case. It's always been about the raw intellect. How will they answer? What have they done in their spare time? Do they do something different? Do they do volunteer work? Do they, have they done this internship? What have they done? Where did they go out of the way to do something exactly along the lines of what Avinath said? So those are what matters. I mean, if you know Elon Musk, right? Tesla. He said, "I don't give a damn about your degree anymore." So he basically said it, right?
Yes.
I mean, I don't fully agree to that kind of view, but you see where this is heading. Okay.
So that's one of the most important things. Just adding on to that, it's like don't expect grades to get you so far. It can get you into a good university. Sure, it can get you into a good job, but that's one thing that a lot of employees do look out for, and that's to see if you have genuine passion in what you want to go for, whether it be software engineering, whether it be human resources or anything, any industry. They want to know that you have passion to do that, to do whatever task that you're going for. And when you have passion, you'll actually seek to learn by yourself, right? You're not expecting anyone to spoon feed it to you. You'll actually go out and you'll study, you'll learn it by yourself, whether it be using online resources or books or anything. So I think that's something that grades can't just define, right? If you get what I mean.
Yes.
It's mostly to do with the economy, I think, like the fact that Sri Lankans don't have jobs available when they are really as young as 16 years old. But I'm pretty sure there are people who manage to get jobs in like other ways. There are people who do classes, online classes, freelancing projects even. Some people go to the university and then do extra things. So it's rather not about the people and their mentalities. I think Sri Lankan people are actually very quick thinking and very good people. They actually want to work, but then they don't have the situation, they don't have the background for it. So there are a lot of people who get by with what they have.
So which means that basically Sri Lankans are fine, but they don't have the environment to act wise.
Exactly.
Okay. So don't we need to create this environment, that the environment that people needs to be?
Yeah, I think like one of the biggest things that businesses can affect on is the local economy. I think businesses like us, we actually make a huge impact on the Sri Lankan economy.
There you go. We create jobs. Not yet, but it'll take some time.
Obviously.
That's something that's definitely something that's a trend that's happening right now with all these startup competition and a lot of startups happening. A lot of these youngsters are starting companies, and everyone, that's including ourselves. We started this just out of university, and we're sort of going forward with that. So that's definitely a good sign that these things are happening. like even you yourselves are starting this company and you're still undergraduates, right? So those are definitely good signs that something's happening in a positive direction.
All right. So thank you so much for all three of you for joining today the discussion. And I'm really hoping to see this product, the product that you mentioned earlier, in the market as soon as possible. Because what I think is my personal opinion, Sri Lanka needs it tomorrow. So that's what I see.
Yeah, I also
Thank you so much for joining us today, and it was really a honor to be with you guys.